It's the 4th of October. It's my father's birthday. Long deceased. He came and went. Isn't that odd? And I'm Robert Beatty, or so I pretend. I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. I pretend that too. And this is a broadcast of the Portland Insight Meditation Community, a collective of really incredible human beings who are doing our very best to become loving and caring and inclusive and generous and forces for good in the world, following the path of the Buddha as transmitted through the Theravada lineages of Thailand, Burma, and Sri Lanka. And I am remiss, and I've been remiss for a long time in not knowing the names of the tribes with whom we share this land that we're taken from them. We have lineages. I have a lineage through Uba Kin, Ruth Dennison. You have lineages through your teachers. Think about your teachers. Let us be grateful for our teachers for a moment as we begin today. We would not be in this Zoom room if we had not had extraordinary teachers. Some of them weren't so nice, but they taught us a lot. So I need to do this. I choose to do this, actually.
Recording in progress.
For some reason I don't know why. One of the ways that mammals, including humans, keep their young ones in line is through shame. You shouldn't do that. Bad, wrong. You'll be punished. You'll be pushed away. I saw a TV ad one time when studying shame. It showed a little boy bouncing into the house. Mom, look at this. I got an A. Mom says from upstairs, be sure to take off your shoes. Little boy cringes. Crushed. It's happened 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Then there's a second run. It's an LDS Mormon ad. The same footage runs. The little boy comes in, and the mom says, I need about 30 seconds. I'll be down. I want to see it. And the boy lights up. We do that to ourselves. So here's a poem about shame by Wendell Berry. We can stop shaming ourselves. It's just a habit. You'll be walking some night in the comfortable dark of your yard, and suddenly a great light will shine around you. And behind you will be a wall you never saw before. It will be clear to you suddenly you are about to escape and that you're guilty. You misread the complex instructions. You are not a member. You lost your card or never had one. And you will know that they have been there all along. Their eyes on your letters and books, their hands in your pockets, their ears wired to your bed. Though you have done nothing shameful, they will want you to be ashamed. They will want you to kneel and weep and say you should have been like them. And once you say you are ashamed, reading the page they hold out to you, then such light as you have made in your entire history will leave you. They will no longer need to pursue you. You will pursue them, begging forgiveness. They will not forgive you. There's no power against them. It is only candor that is aloof from them. Only an inward clarity unashamed that they can never reach. Be ready when their light has picked you out and their questions are asked. Say to them, I am not ashamed. A sure horizon will come around you. The heron will begin his evening flight from the hilltop. They will no longer need to pursue you. You will pursue them, begging forgiveness. They will not forgive you. There is no power against them. It is only candor that is aloof from them. Only an inward clarity unashamed that they can never reach. Be ready when their light has picked you out and their questions are asked. Say to them, I am not ashamed. A sure horizon will come around you, and the heron will begin his evening flight from the hilltop. Once again, we woke up from sleep. And now we wake up from the dream. We come home to the body. It sits here. It's so dependable. Of course, until it's not. The body so dependably presses against the chair. It's heavy. Feel its heaviness. The body is alive. It tingles and vibrates and is warm and cool. It breathes in and breathes out. And there is a great isn't a big enough word. There is a life-changing primary strategy from the Buddha. Come home to your breath. Let your breath be real. Notice how it begins, how it comes into being, how it lives its lifetime, how it diminishes, and how it disappears. Of course, there may well be dreams, fantasies, hopes, plans, stories, the 5 hindrances. The mind may be identified with wanting something. I want something. When I get this thing, I'll be okay. Or it's disliking something, pushing something away. When I get rid of this thing, I'll be okay. Or maybe it's frantic, restless, wanting, not wanting, restless, agitated, worrying. Some minds really like to worry a lot. Or maybe it's just dull, tired, disinterested. That's no reason not to be awake, but just to know sloth and torpor. Or maybe there's doubt. Doubt's a slippery one. Keeps us away from practice. But also no reason not to be awake. And so we sit here. Just like Siddhartha did under his tree, we sit under ours. Right here. I take refuge in the Buddha and being awake. I take refuge in the Dharma, in the way things actually are, and in the path to that awakening. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of those supporting one another in awakening. Coming home to breathing. noticing. We fall into trances all the time. Not all the time, a lot of the time. Waking up from the wandering mind, coming home to breathing in and out. The second foundation of mindfulness, the Buddha called them gocharas, pastures. The second pasture of abiding. Liking and disliking. Of course, we like and dislike because we're mammals. We're vulnerable living creatures. We want to avoid pain, and we have to avoid pain. We want to experience pleasure. And every sense door contact, every time the eye lights up, or the ear, or the nose, or the tongue, the feeling body, or the mind, there's a valence. It's liking or disliking, or it's neutral. It hasn't decided yet. Part of our trance is that we believe all these likings and dislikings are essential. I have to get away from this. I have to go toward that. But in this simple practice of mindfulness, the Buddha said, notice when liking is present, wanting. Notice when disliking is present, not wanting, wanting not. Recognize, inhabit the space where you realize liking is just another experience. Disliking is another experience. None of them are personal. And so we discover that, body is sitting here. The mind may be quite busy. And in response, there might be liking and disliking. Liking and disliking are like this. Every breath has a beginning with great gratitude, with humility, with a warm sweetness of heart. Watch each breath be born. I've been there twice when my children were born. They take that first gasping breath. They're so vulnerable. They're nothing but vulnerable. And so are we with each breath. It's always the first. It breathes in and the chest expands, and there's some sensations at the nostril, perhaps. And then it breathes out. Coming home and resting. Our natural state is love, and we forget. Our natural state is compassion, and we forget. We get lost in these personality trips. And so we remind ourselves, I aspire, my intention. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am. Exactly as I am. I aspire to accept this moment exactly as it is. and then rest here. Breathing in, breathing out. And we discover it is revealed to us that there's hurting. And wherever there's resistance, there's suffering. Being in a human body hurts. Being in human relationship hurts. So, whenever I discover that I'm hurting, I aspire. My intention is to practice, to remember, to hold myself in sweet compassion. Let each breath in be compassion. Let each breath out be love. What does that mean? It means I think it's okay to relax. There's nowhere to get to other than right here. Breathing in, remembering to be awake, remembering to be loving. Breathing out a great sigh of compassion. It's pretty darn hard for human beings, for all beings. and sensing it's time to head on to the next stage of our daily adventure, waking up in daily life. So let's really take a moment to drop into the body. It'll be with us all day. Why not remember as it walks to notice it's walking, or as it goes to the toilet, notice this is what it does. As it eats, as it showers, as it changes the baby's diaper. Inhabiting the Tai Chi of life, the Qigong of life. And of course, we will encounter other people, and they will be, many of them, really suffering a lot. They may be acting not as we would like, in big ways even. We can take that same aspiration. I aspire to hold everyone and everything in sweet, loving compassion. And please now, coming home to the hands, the aliveness of hands, the aliveness of face, the aliveness of eyes, and letting the eyes open and noticing what happens. It's seeing again. I see you seeing me. That's wonderful to do in person, of course. Of course, it goes endless. I see you seeing me, seeing you, seeing you. I have something to share with you here. Hope it works. Looks promising. We have here the cleaning out the junk team from Saturday. Maggie really was into this saw. Jim was bonking her on the head. Laura was smiling. We were finished already. And this Gregory he's visible, I guess, in your picture. And then there was this. I got into the action with the steam cleaner stuff. And this was we cleaned out the furnace room. This has been filled with stuff. And there was another room I didn't get a picture of because it was too dark. But we had a great time. It's going to be so nice when we can get back into our whatever we call it, our Dharma Center. You can help with that. I remembered very brilliantly, I think, to put in the chat the fundraising letter if you haven't had a chance to participate in that, or if you've come into an inheritance in the last few days or something. It is so... Generosity is great. The practice of generosity. I had a little fun with generosity last night at the fashion show. Was at the Kennedy School. These young kids had rented a room in the Kennedy School, and they got food all set up. But the poor bartender was sitting there bored to death because nobody was buying any booze. I mean, there was none. They were all underage. And I asked her if there was water, and then I realized, well, I could tip her for that. So I went back and told her, well, the tips must be grim, and she kind of grimaced, and I put $10 in her hand, and she said, oh, that's nice. Now, that was a lot of bang for $10. So I invite you, practice giving, and check out the letter. It's a really fine letter describing what we're doing and the importance of it, and it's a way to support people doing what we're doing here. Because everybody gets to walk through the door the first time, or come onto Zoom the first time, and then if this is the right path for them, then they get a chance to wake up and be much happier, hurt each other less. Jim, anything else that you should say before we let you go?
Yes, this evening is Rumi's guest house. When I get back from my class, I'll figure out what I'm going to be saying tonight.
In the morning?
Send that.
That's rather early.
I have to get it out on connections before people get pulled into 16 other things.
That's true.
Anyway, when I come back, I'll figure out what I'm going to do. But it'll probably be either Rumi or Mary Oliver. And today is St. Francis Day. I don't know if that's an important announcement, but my wife's grandfather was Frank, and he always had a poker party or something special on St. Francis Day.
Very, very appropriate. There's a lovely movie. It's very schmaltzy, but it's called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon. It's the story of St. Francis.
Yeah.
Very.
I took my kids to see that at certain times.
It's a gorgeous story.
Yeah.
Guy goes off to war, sees trauma to the max, and comes back and can't tolerate the materialism of his wealthy father. Remember that he's throwing he goes insane, and he's throwing all the wealth out the window, and the people are coming and getting it. Bolts of cloth, and it was a trip. So thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
So, dear friends, what's happening for you? With what piece of your life can you grace us?
Hi, Robert.
It's B. Hello, B.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Good to be here. I just wanted to ask for the Sangha's support for a dear friend of mine of 50 years who lives in Denver with his wife. And shortly after COVID started, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And during this whole period, he's had a lot of treatments and surgeries. And he just wrote last night and said he had decided that it was time to live life as he can in the time he has left, which we were kind of expecting because my husband and I had visited them in August, which was wonderful. But what I didn't, your mind just doesn't really go to timing. And he said that they had signed up for a hospice, which of course indicated to me that it was going to be maybe sooner rather than the later that you always hope for. And they're really sweet, kind people. He's lived a lovely, happy life, active, and a life of extraordinary kindness. He's a very kind man. So I just wanted to ask for the Sangha to hold him and his wife. His name is Rob, and his wife's name is Kay, and they have 3 sons. And to just shine a little light on that family. And of course, also on me and my husband as we prepare to say goodbye to such a good friend. So that's all. Thank you.
To Rob and Kay, beloved friends of 50 years. Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
And so the veil is pulled aside, right? Mortal. To love what is mortal, to hold it against our bones as though our life depends on it. If we're going to dare to be alive and connect, there's going to be some tremendous ripping and snapping at the level of personality. And then we just wake
I've
up
always
more.
loved that poem. I
Yeah,
love that poem.
it's
And
got.
when it is time to let it go. Yes.
It's such a brave poem. It's so. I mean, that's part of her gift, isn't it? That she dared to be fully alive.
Yeah.
You too, of course.
Yes. Part of her gift.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Robert, it's Neil.
Hello, Neil.
Hey. Um, Yesterday during a church session, or not church session, but church service, and today during the sit, I had some trauma stuff come up. Some of which was like curious. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but it came up. And after the church service, I had someone pray for me. And the guy was like, he prayed and he was like, and Neil, just move on and forget this stuff from the past. And it helped for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe half an hour.
Uh-huh.
Maybe after I got done eating my nachos, I was fine later on. But anyway, it came up, and then it came up during the sit. And I will continue to seek support today if that bothers me. I'll reach out to who I can reach out to, but I just don't want to sit here and not bring any kind of oxygen to it. So,
may I make a suggestion?
please.
Turn toward that trauma, however it's emerging, as you would turn toward a newborn baby and hold it. Love that part of yourself. If you need or would be nourished by outer support, find a friend or a therapist or somebody talk to the group here. But to be so vulnerable as to allow that, whatever that is, that old undigested whatever it is, to allow that to come into consciousness and then turn toward it and embrace it with all your heart. And then what happens, and there's a danger because then we can say, well, I'll do this and then it'll go away. But what happens is it all can be metabolized over time. We can befriend these old hurts and sometimes we do need. I've said many times that there's stuff that I've faced in my lifetime. When I had a person devoted to my therapy that I was going to see, that I couldn't face some things without someone to hold my hand, literally, physically to hold my hand, because part of it was this chasm of darkness and emptiness and abandonment and terror and as a little kid, there were times, and this happens for all of us, there were times when I needed somebody and something and there was nobody there. And so in order to face that particular wound, I needed a hand to hold, and I needed a holding environment of someone who held me regularly like that, speaking again of therapy, and Ruth. So I would say, don't note it and let it pass. This is one of those things where you note it and love yourself more and more. And find someone you can talk about the details with and go deeply into the wound. There is an end to it. None of these, I don't know, maybe there are some that we can't get out of, but I have been with people who have worked their way through extraordinary trauma and found greater freedom, a lot of freedom.
I have a therapist and I can go to, and I actually messaged him
Good.
after the sit.
Because the meditation will shake that stuff loose. It's one of the reasons that we meditate. Ultimately it's to realize that none of it really matters. It's all okay. But on the way, we have this vulnerable person to take care of, notably yourself. And that little, we talk about the little child, and there isn't a little child in there, but there are structures in there that are that.
It's hard, I think, sitting when that stuff comes up. I think, feeling, if I hadn't said anything, I would have processed it and I would have been okay. But I felt like there is a sense of being alone with it and then having to manage it. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I struggle with is, when do I manage thoughts and feelings and when do I try to let them pass? Mm-hmm. And that kind of differential is something that I struggle with. And then when it's something that's like heavier and more stormy, or difficult or whatever, then, what do I do with that? And so I clicked unmute, but and said what I said, but that is hard. When do I let it all go or let it be, and when do I manage it? And with this, I would imagine you should manage it, but
I that's the art, I think. It's the art, and we develop skill in that over time. That when does it make sense? When do I have the inner and outer capacity to go into this deeply? Because sometimes what's emerging is just unbearable by oneself, right? And so you need to be in community to deal with that one way or another. Other times, you've felt this so many times and you've been through it so many times. Actually, I could tell you a story of that. I was at Brighton Bush. One of the important interventions from Ruth Denison. I was at Brighton Bush. It was a Stephen Levine retreat. People came to Stephen's retreats with bad stories, bad trauma. And there was a morning, if there's some time, bye, Jimbo. There was a woman was there, and she told a story, and it's a bad story. Her daughter was abducted, raped, and killed. And she told this story and was freaking out. A room with 100 people in it. So I did what I did in such circumstances was I was very empathic, and I started to cry too. And there were other people in the room crying. And that evening I went to see Ruth, and she said, "Darling, what were you doing in there?" And I said, "When?" And she explained when. And I said, "Oh, that story was so sad. I was, crying with her and made me sad too." And she said, "Well," and I said, "Should I not?" And she said, "Well, darling, you just looked so comfortable doing that." And I got a little defensive, but it was Ruth. And so I said, "Well, what else might I have done?" She said, "Well, you might experiment next time with when the door comes when you can go into that crying, don't." And an opportunity came up the next day, and I didn't. And I was mind blown that a whole new level of compassion opened up. But that was a habit that I had, and I thought it was supportive of her. And I could go there because I know that level of trauma. I don't know about having her daughter killed, but I know what it's like to have severe pain in the heart like that. And so that was a turning point for me. And so there are times when it really makes sense. Turn toward it, go in, get the support you need, let yourself cry, shriek, bang on things, do what you need to do to mindfully let it come to consciousness. And then there comes a time when Well, there's another thing. Sometimes you've got to go to work, or you've done a meditation and it's time to get the baby up, or you've got to be responsible. In which case, we learn it's part of the skill is, okay, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I'm not denying this is here, but I'm a grown-up. I have work to do. I have other people that I'm responsible to or for. Or I'll get fired if I don't and I want to keep a roof over my head. But then we put a marker on it. We note, yep, this is here. I'm going to come back. And you're doing that, Neil. I think you're doing that actually rather admirably. And it's murky and difficult. And when you're in the stage of that stuff really coming through, it gets very confusing. And you think it's never going to end.
Yeah. It's I hate to say this, it's a goddamn process. It's a process.
It is.
Thank you, Robert. I'll stop talking.
Oh, I don't feel as though you spoke too much. I'm very appreciative. That question about the razor's edge between going into something and learning how to suppress things and learning how to open things up, that's a huge piece of Dharma practice. And lots of people, and even some spiritual traditions, don't do it well. Don't go. That's heavy. Don't go. Like the Hare Krishnas. When I was on my way to do my first long retreat, I went through San Francisco, and I was in the park, and the Hare Krishnas were dancing, and I told them I was going to a 2-month Buddhist meditation retreat, and this guy said, "Oh man, don't go to the Buddhists. They are downers. They're always talking about death. Come and be with us and sing Hare Krishna." And there's a place for that, though. Appreciating my life experience, my first wife and I took 25 Lewis and Clark students, including Doug Pullen, to India for 5 months. Get that, 5 months. That's 20 weeks. And one of the places we went was New Vrindavan, which is the center of the Hare Krishna world. This was before it blew up when, I forget his name, when the big leader died. But we went there, and this is another tragic story. We got there the night after, I guess. A young couple had a baby, toddler, who got into their quinine tablets. Quinine used to work somewhat against malaria, and died. So they had had a fatality of their child in the last 24 hours, and they were dancing and singing maniacally. They were chanting Hare Krishna and praising that their child, who had a name, had gone home to Krishna. And their faces were contorted, and they were obviously in terrible grief, but they were doing a whole socio-cultural, personal avoidance of that anguish, and the community was not supporting them in any way that could help them go into it. Terrible. So, learning how to negotiate those territories as a community and as individuals is a central piece of Dharma practice. And it's no wonder it's confusing. It is confusing.
It is. And I think there's a difference between not suppression, but coming back to something and burying something so I don't have to deal with it. And so I always I don't want to bury anything or push it away.
Yeah.
But I like what you said about noting it. It's not like I have to even note it. It's going to come back up.
But
it's waiting for me.
However, putting a marker on it in a certain way puts your ego more in charge, which we want. That the ego is the function in the psyche that decides whether to open doors or not. At least so it seems. It feels like that. And so it gives us a much more sense of security when we can say, another first marriage, bad divorce, custody battle, terrified Robert. I'd have to go into these negotiation sessions. And my therapist suggested that I have that before I leave home, I sit for a while, half an hour or so, and that I make a deal with little Bobby. you do not belong in this room. There's violence in this room. The room where I'm going to do this negotiation. When I get back, we'll go do something fun. We'll sit some more. We'll do something pleasant. But I'm not taking you to this meeting. Now, that sounds a little psychotic, but it was very helpful, because in the meeting, I didn't need that emotional little boy. I needed that warrior who was willing to say, here's the line. You step across this and you're getting your head cut off. This is it. My kids are staying with me too. And I needed to learn that was, in retrospect, that was the purpose of that divorce for me. To learn to stand up and say, you're not getting this one. And so learning how to deal with those parts of us is very important, because then we can be more secure. Then you can go off to work and you do your work. And there's I make this distinction, which I think is helpful. I forget which is which, but I use it this way. In the psychoanalytic world, they talk about repression. And there are thoughts, feelings, experiences, memories, trauma that have been repressed out of consciousness, and we don't know they're there. We may be acting out of them. I was acting angry and all kinds of things that I didn't know it was there. And then the meditation or the therapy or life reveals to us what's there. And then maybe it's got some pressure and it runs for a while. But then we learn how to suppress it, which is, little Bobby, you need to stay home today, right? This is not a place for you. Or I got to go to work. I'm going to suppress this, but I'm doing it on purpose. And I know how to get back. And I know the poem to read, or the dance to do, I know what to do, or maybe I know how to go meditate and say, okay, I'm ready. But we're developing agency with these inner forces that is really liberating. And then the more we can suppress effectively, the more we can open up, and then the more happy, the more relaxed we can be, because we know I can get back to this, and it's important, and I can shut this down and have a good time, even. Or at least I can pretend well enough that I can function in my life and I don't let people down. Not that that's the end of the world either. Of course, we're going to let people down. Thank you for this morning.
Thank you for your response.
It's really important. It's the boundary between psychology and spirituality.
Thanks, Robert.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to need to go soon. I have another meeting with that wonderful young man who stuck needles in my back. And the pain, I worked in the garden yesterday for 2 hours, and I didn't have to sit down once. I've been able to work for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd have to go sit down. Feeling very old and decrepit, and like, the end was upon me. And I worked for 2 hours. And getting out of bed, I prepare for that. My right foot hits the ground, and I'm ready for the jolt of pain, and it isn't there. It's what an amazing thing. Of course, it won't always be like that, right? Something will be that it's painful all the time. But right now, I have another reprieve. I can dance again more fully. That's privilege, isn't it? Imagine being able to go to a hospital and be taken care of. So, anybody sitting with anything you'd like to share before we go, knowing that I have to go pretty soon?
Hello, Robert. Hello, Sangha. I will be very quick. Hello.
Oh, there you are, Janet. I couldn't see you.
I don't know where I am. I think I'm here. So I've been away visiting friends, and before I went away, way back, when was it? Way back in September, I went to the surgeon who did my cataract surgery 2 years ago. And he said, oh, well, you do have macular degeneration. back in the retina, but you also have something else going on in the capsule that surrounds the lens. And it's been having little cells from the lens grow on it like scar tissue. And that's why you can't see, and it looks like there's gauze in front of your face. Would you like me to zap that with a laser? I said, oh, yes. And he did. And it's amazing. I can see. I wanted to share that with everybody.
Oh,
it's
wonderful.
so incredible. Yes. I can drive. I can
No.
watch.
No.
I can read sheet music.
Oh.
It's just, it was 8 months of practicing patience. And I am a fiercely independent woman. And to have to give that up, I learned a lot. And now I'm back, being able to live a somewhat normal life. Your rug in the back, if I look with my right eye, it's got little wavy things in it, and your face is blurry. But with my left eye, it's very clear. So I just wanted to share that with anybody. It's been a strange journey, and this is what happens with a body or maybe a mind, that all of a sudden, boom, things can change.
Wow.
Sometimes for the better.
Yeah. I am so glad of that for you. And it's such an interesting twist for me, because I have been, since you shared your loss of sight, every time I see you on and I talk about coming back to seeing, I've tried to include your lack of seeing.
I know.
Well, but there's also another person, forgetting her name right now, but who's really quite visually impaired. But I've been always being sure that I'd included you, and I'm glad I don't need to. I'll still do it. I think it's a good idea. But I'm so happy for you. Well, I had visions. I had visions of you in Mexico and not being able to see the beauty. You know?
Oh, I know. Or trip over the cobblestones. But
right
now all is good. I was really looking forward to going to the center with my friend Barbara and seeing a lot of you in person that I've been seeing for a year and a half on Zoom. And now we're leaving in mid-November, so I'm going to have to wait until I'm back in Portland. But since I have to come back to get my eyeballs injected every 7 to 8 weeks, I hope that it will coincide with going to the center.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, now everybody needs to go off to do their day, and we need to finish. But I'm so happy to have this Sangha and to be able to share this with you.
Yay!
Yay!
Well, let's go out on our traditional chant. Please unmute if you'd like, and we'll be beautifully cacophonous. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu
Sadhu.
That sounded very dirge-like and Asian to me. It is something to honor tradition, but it's a little weird, isn't it?
I'm going with the St. Francis Day. I like that.
Yes,
Well,
Francine.
Poker party at your house?
That,
Wait.
That's right. That's right.
Hang on. Brother, sun, and sister moon, I now can hear you, I can sing your tune. Preoccupied in selfish misery, I am God's creature, of him, her, them, I am part. I can feel their love awakening my heart. That's the Francis song.
Wow.
Hello, Janet.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Congrats, Janet. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm glad you can see, Janet.
Thank you. Me too.
I see you seeing me.
I see you see.
Yes.
I'm glad the
staying
shots
here.
are working, Robert.
Oh, yeah. It lasts a long
Me
time.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
So happy for you, Robert.
Me too. It's a miracle. It really is. The change
Yeah.
in now, it hasn't altered my mood that much, but it's made it much easier. I'm not fighting with the well, chronic pain takes a lot of work.
Yeah. It does.
Mhm.
And to not have it again, it's a miracle.
For as long as it lasts.
It's I mean, for that young man to stick those needles in my back and then for the pain to just dissipate, that's really something.
Did that happen before your retreat or after?
After just last Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, on my retreat, it was about a 15-minute walk each way to the Dharma hall, and each way I would stop at least once or twice and stretch, and it was still fine. I had a wonderful time on the retreat, and it was not. I was in heaven actually on the retreat so much with meeting with people, but. You know how it is. You know really how it is, how when something that you're carrying that's heavy, you put it down, you get to rest a little bit, and you're more creative. Yeah. I must go. I got to play in the traffic. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye, Tamara.
Good day, Tonga.
Goodbye, Hadley. Live long and prosper.
Bye, Had.
Here we go.
Bye.
Ready for the leap to hyperspace?